Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are here for another great live stream to unveil some exciting new features. So I'm Sean Morgan. I'm the community manager for ChronoLogic, and I am joined by Anthony, one of our great developers. So welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Sean. Hey guys, my name is Anthony Adegbemi, but you might know me as Adiba03. Uh, and I'm ecstatic to be here, and I hope you guys have fun with the webinar.
Great. So first, we're just going to talk about this audit that everyone's been waiting for. So we'll go to the next slide. That I know it's a little bit frustrating to wait for these things to happen, but security is really number one. I think we all want to mitigate the risk that could happen if we go to mainnet and have a problem. So we're taking every precaution we can. We hired the best, so we're waiting for ZK Labs to do their thing. Should be done very quickly, wouldn't you say, Anthony?
Yes, actually, the latest information we have from them indicates that we should be having the reports back anytime soon, and we're looking forward to that, actually.
Great. So, Anthony, can you tell us about some of the latest updates, the development updates?
Definitely, Sean. Any of you guys who were here for the last live stream might have seen these updates from the 2 weeks ago about the latest release of the Ethereum alarm clock Dapp, the version 0.97 update, Nimble update, which adds some very interesting features, including the Electron Dapp, which is the instance of the time node which runs in your OS and not your browser. Apart from the Electron Dapp, we also have the addition of the search improvement, such that you can now search by the sender, and also we have improvements like the transaction list optimization, such that when you want to load the transaction list, it is now reduced from taking about 14 seconds to taking just around 2 seconds.
Blazing
Um,
fast.
yes, actually, Logan even mentioned that it's probably getting too fast for the network. Yeah. Also, we had the time node statistics improvement. So there have been issues with the time node statistics where your claimed revenue or your balance seems to looks very weird, because you might end up having either a negative value or an extremely large value. So all those have been fixed, and those were the updates with the last release, which was 2 weeks ago.
Great. Yeah, I think one of the most exciting ones is the Electron Dapp. So I don't really understand the technical stuff as much as you do. So can you explain the benefits, or just at least what it is, the Electron Dapp, the executable files?
Yeah, definitely, Sean. So the Electron Dapp is a local instance of the time node on your system, which does not run from the browser. So what that means is just like you have your executables, you have your DMG, you have your exe for Windows, you have your sh for Linux. The time node will come in, right, or appear as one of those kind of executables, and you can run it directly from your OS and not from your browser.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm sure on the next slide we can get into some of the differences or benefits of that.
Yes, definitely. Uh, I could give you a few hints, which includes the advantage being the Electron Dapp being safer, being faster, and being lighter than the browser Dapp, just as a summary. And that is not mincing words or trying to exaggerate, but the fact that you download the Electron Dapp just once, and you don't have to download it again, you only have to download the little data that you need to run your time node, makes it instantaneous as against the browser, saves your bandwidth, and allows you focus on actually participating as a time node.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking that if you have two different versions, a browser-based and desktop-based, then at least you have a backup if one of them isn't working, right?
Yes, actually. More preferably, the browser would be the backup in case the time node isn't working, which should hardly ever happen because of the comparison in terms of efficiency, which puts the Electron Dapp ahead of the browser Dapp.
Right. You were telling me that with the Electron Dapp, your private keys and that kind of stuff is less vulnerable, less exposed to the internet. So can you explain that a little bit more and tell us what would be the point of even using the browser Dapp? Would you consider it completely unsafe?
Uh, Well, I wouldn't say the browser Dapp is unsafe. As a matter of fact, this is more about the Electron Dapp than it is about the browser Dapp, in the sense that the Electron Dapp happens to be safer than the browser Dapp. That is not to mean that the browser Dapp is unsafe. It's just that making use of the Electron Dapp saves you from the risk of the DNS hack and the phishing attacks, among other attacks that you might find when you're actually surfing the net. So the browser
Right.
Dapp isn't actually unsafe. Yeah, it's just that the Electron Dapp is safer.
Okay, that's good to know. So how does this work? Can you show us?
Yes, definitely. So guys, roll up your sleeves and please leave your answers in the question box as I present the Electron Dapp to you. So traditionally, we are used to having the Dapp in the browser, just like this. You go to have the ChronoLogic.network slash time node, and then you have your time node loaded for you. Yeah, you get to put in your wallet file and whatever. But in this case, what you do for the Electron Dapp is to go to a releases page, which is github.com slash chronologic slash f alarm clock dapp slash releases, and then you go to the releases and you will see the nimble updates. You'll see the zip for Linux, you see the DMG for Mac OS, as well as the zip for Windows, and then you get to download whichever environment you're going to make use of. So for this, I would be making use of the Windows zip. So I have downloaded that previously, so I would be bringing that in now. Um, the size is about 120 MB, but the advantage of it is that once you do download it, you don't have to worry about it anymore. So after downloading that, you get a folder which you can extract the Earth Alarm Clock DAP Win32x64. Once you open it, you would see an executable file, which is the Earth Alarm Clock DAP. And then you run it, and it loads up your time node for you
Could these
without
potentially
having
run
to.
on mobile devices if it's a Windows or a Mac mobile device?
So presently, they can run on mobile devices, although we wouldn't really advise that because of the additional requirements that the time node needs to send your transactions and fetch whatever they need to fetch. But for instance, a Windows mobile device, which particularly runs the Windows 10, you'll be able to run the executable, yes.
Okay.
So just with the time node, there are some things you might notice, which include that you don't have a block number, right? This also is the same on the browser Dapp. Don't worry about that. Once you load your wallet file, you get to have um, all the information you need loaded. So you select the wallet file, and then you unlock. Uh, and then there's also the updates whereby you don't have your address here to sign. Instead, you get to type whatever you want to type, whatever you feel like typing. Uh, uh, so let's just do this, right? And so that is the message you get to sign. And on signing it from my crypto, or what you're gonna get is so we're gonna go onto my crypto to sign it. So yep, but my crypto, go to sign and verify message. Let's choose MetaMask. Let's ensure MetaMask is unlocked. Okay, we have MetaMask unlocked, and then we go to MetaMask. Then we put in the message we want signed, and we sign the message. MetaMask notifies us, and then we get our signed message back. So this is what we need to
We copy and paste
present.
that signature in.
Correct. So we just copy that and paste it back into the Electron Dapp and verify, and then you get to put your password for this is the password for the key store now, the password for your wallet. And you put that in, you unlock it, and voila, your time node is up and running. And as you can see, it shows my Ethereum balance as well as my day balance for the address which I used to sign the message earlier on. And then if you check the log, you will see scanning started, see watching started. So right now it has begun the process. So it's as simple as that, as direct as that. And then the other thing is, if you were to close your what's it called now, to close the time node, right? By the time you open it, all you need to do is to put back your password and you're running. And as you can see up here, you see the time, the block number has also appeared. So that is, in a nutshell, running your Electron Dapp.
It's really very similar to the browser version, and you showed us how easy and fast it is to run a time node. So if someone wants to
Yes,
try this in a test environment, the Kovan test environment, then they can go to our tutorial on our blog with all the screenshots to
yes,
show you exactly how to do that. Someone had a question.
yes,
If they have an Electron Dapp on their computer and they want to, like, say, execute a transaction for someone like the next day, but then their computer or their app fails, can they just go to another computer with the same account, so to speak, and just do it somewhere
yes.
else on
Actually,
another
that's
computer?
yes. As long as you're making use of the same address, you would be able to go ahead with the transactions which you've already claimed previously. That was one of the checks we actually took note of during this last session of updates that we ran.
Oh, great. There's another question from Next Level. He's saying, how about to run the Dapp as a service? Damon.
Yes, so we're going in that direction, but we're still a ways off. But right now, we have a way to closest into that we have is a way to have your Dapp running in Docker. This was actually worked upon by Joseph, and this was released, I think, the second to the last release, where you can get to run your time node in the Docker instance. So we're still going in the direction of running it as a service or daemon.
And can you run two time nodes at the same time, or can you run the Electron Dapp at the same time as you're running the browser Dapp? You have to
Yes,
have two different.
you can actually run them at the same time, even with the same address, although we advise not more than two. And the reason for running two is basically redundancy, to ensure that if one were to have a problem, the other would be able to serve as a fallback. We're also taking note or making some updates which specifically watch for such cases to prevent a scenario where you have the two time nodes sending um, transactions to the network at the same time, and then having issues with nonces and thereby affecting the network as a whole. But it's better to have not more than two of the same address, but you can have as many as possible of different addresses.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So
Okay, going to the next slide. You've been working on this token allocation distributor for a few weeks on the development side. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a mini side project, or let's say utility-based side project. It basically is a smart contract which receives tokens and then splits it to addresses which have been set at the point of deployment of the contract address at the rate which is set at the point of contract deployment. So what that means is the smart contract, when you're about to deploy it, you get to set the address of each stakeholder and the weight or the percentage or the fraction of each one of the stakeholders, such that the smart contract, making use of that information, would split whatever tokens it owns between the addresses in question. Um, it is also very interesting in the sense that it can be directly linked to the Ethereum alarm clock, which is why it was an interesting side project, because it's a wonderful use case for the Ethereum alarm clock. Uh, Once you have your smart contract deployed, you can easily link the alarm clock to it, which then calls it either at intervals with the concurrent scheduler, or calls it at a particular time. And then another advantage of this is that Uh, it's reusable in the sense that once the addresses you want to send to do not change, and the sharing rate or the weights do not change, you can make use of the same contract, and it doesn't have to be just the same token. You can use it for any ERC20 compatible token. And then finally, the distributor is it can accept an arbitrary number of addresses. So what that means is you don't need to have just 5 addresses or 1 address. You can have as many addresses as you want, or as few addresses as you want, basically.
So thank you for getting into the what. Now let's get into the why. Why would someone use this uh, allocation distributor? I was getting kind of excited as you were talking that it could be used for some point in the ICO contribution process, whether the contributing or actually, on the other end when they're sending things back. So is that one possibility? you know, can you do this without scheduling or with scheduling with the ICO contribution processes?
Yes, actually. So we've all had this scenario where you've contributed into the ICO, and then they give a date when the token will be released. And in a case where you are more than one person, probably 5 people pull their funds together to get a better offer with the ICO. They just need to provide the splitter address or the allocator address, and once the tokens are released by the team, the splitter would then be triggered to split or share or distribute the tokens as agreed to the different addresses. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent use case. And another one here that's listed is the dividend and profit distribution. Now, if something is potentially a legally, like a security token, for example, then there could actually be timed distribution to thousands of addresses. So is that another use case? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, actually. So you have a token, or you have a system which pays you dividends at a particular period of time, at particular intervals, or at a set time in the future. And obviously, you might have forgotten about the address. You might have forgotten about the transaction. Oh well, even if you did not forget about the transaction, having to go and fetch all the addresses in question and then sending it to each one of them can be very cumbersome. But you set up your splitter contract, you put all the information in at the point of deployment, you use that address as the address for the dividends, and once the dividends or profits arrive, it's automatically split into the different addresses.
Hmm.
And
So you
voila.
don't get a whole bunch of money sent to an address and you just forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah, actually. So
Okay.
another use case might actually be just as is their salary disbursement, which is very close to this as well.
Yeah, in fact, kind of relating both salary, employees, and the vesting use case. If you work for a crypto project, they sometimes, as a team member, they want you to not have control over your tokens until you've been with the project for 6 months or a year. So then you could time all of this with the Ethereum alarm clock and the allocation distributor, right?
Yes, that's another perfect use case actually. That's a very common use case also as well.
Great. Maybe some of the community members can come up with some use cases. It looks like someone already did. And in the meantime, if you guys want to participate in the next demo, we're going to be sending some test Kovan.
Common
So
day
so
tokens.
for day tokens. So if you can send us your day token addresses in the chat box, then you can participate in the demo. So tell us, Anthony, what is the benefits compared to manually sending these distributions?
Definitely. So we might all have had this scenario where you're about to send a transaction and then you realized you've added unnecessary zero, or you put space. Space is the best culprit I know of. And the way the EVM works, um, it would take whatever you've sent to it and use it to help you construct an address and then send the funds to that address. And I know of a few people who have actually ended up sending some funds into the void that way. But making use of this, first of all, you have the addresses preset at the point of deployment of the contract, so you can check that the addresses are correct. You can check that the ratios or the weight of the addresses are correct. So that way, you wouldn't have a problem or such an error, since all you need to do is just to make a function call and you're not typing in anything at the point of sending the tokens to the different addresses. Another thing is if you need to reuse the address. So, for instance, you have a case where you are supposed to receive up to 6 payments. Sending manually to 3 people 6 different payments, that's actually sending excuse me, that's 18 times typing addresses, which gives enough room for error, not to also mention the error of the value you're trying to type in. But using the smart contract, you only type the addresses once, and then the transaction keeps on taking care of itself basically.
Very cool. And I was just reading the use cases that people came up with in the chat box, and I like the way they worded it, a conditional faucet, that if you do something, then you get rewarded. I've heard of the use case that if you do some kind of open source contribution, then you're automatically allocated the reward, for example.
Yes, actually, that's actually a very, very wonderful one. That's a very wonderful use case.
And people are already sending their day addresses, so we're getting ready for the demo. So yeah, show us how the token allocator works.
Great. So first of all, you can find the token allocator allocation distributor at ChronoLogic slash token allocation distributor. All you just need to do is to grab the contracts and you're good to go. You would also see from the README the test locations on the Ropstein and Kovan of the smart contract itself. So we're going to be making use of Remix for this. This is the contract itself, and we're going to be sending day token to addresses on Kovan, the Kovan network. So first of all, we need to deploy the addresses. Okay, so I have 2 addresses here. So first of all, let me pick the day token address here. Uh, okay,
Some
so
people had
the
some
day.
really good ideas for the token allocation distributor, like if you add content like on Steemit or something like that as an example, then you get automatically rewarded.
Yes, that's there are a lot of use cases out there for the smart contract is just about um, creativity basically, um, and the
Especially,
possibilities are endless actually.
yeah, especially when you get into like groups of people who all contributed to adding some kind of collaborative content, and they can all get their percentage based on how much they participated allocated to them with this.
Yes, yes, there is that as well. There is that as well. So I'm gathering the addresses now to deploy the smart contract. If you want some day token, now is the right time to put up your addresses in the question box.
Now, this is not real day token though, right?
Yes, Coven day token. It's
This is
Coven day
free.
token. This is free day
Monetary
token.
value is zero.
Yeah, the advantage, additional advantage of this is you could, since we're sending this to you, you would also be able to make use of it in testing out the time node, basically.
Right.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be sending 1,000 day tokens. That's Coven day tokens now to each one of the addresses that I have. So I have two addresses so far. Uh, so I'm gonna take one from the team. Let's say three addresses, and let's take the stakeholders. Okay, so what I'm pasting right now is the addresses separated by double colon and comma, basically, and then the weights. So I want everybody to be equally distributed. Since we have three, I just put 5, 5, 5. Now, the other trick to the smart contract is you don't need a rounded value. Even if I were to put 333, the smart contract itself will run the calculations it needs to run to
Yeah,
make
that's
it possible.
convenient.
Yes, so as long as you know what each value should be, you're good to go. So let's ensure that we have my address loaded. Okay, I have my address loaded. And I get to send the transaction to the Coven network. This is Ropsten, so I reject that. Switching over to Coven. Okay, Coven test network. Okay, so we're on Coven test network, and I think we're good to go. Okay. Reload. So for those who make use of MetaMask, you know that once you change the network, it has to reload. It's part of the security features to ensure you don't send funds to a random address. So sadly, we have to go through this process again, but good thing I have it
So
all
if
down
people
here.
want to experiment with this, they can go to the GitHub link in the slides, and we'll be putting the slides linked in the YouTube description once we put the recording on YouTube. And then they can find this remix link in GitHub. Is that right?
Yes, that's right, actually. That's right. So just to mention another feature to the smart contract is this total stakeholders is actually the value that limits the number in the address list that gets added. So if, for instance, you have a long, extremely long list of addresses and you can't go through each one of them and you just need the first 20, you just put it here as 20 and then you put your extremely long list in the stakeholders and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, that would be beneficial if only the top 20
yes, actually,
really matter.
yeah. So, this comes to play if you have something like an hackathon or a competition where you have the
Yeah.
first addresses and then you get your addresses from CSV from
Oh yeah, that's
whatever
another use
CSV you
case.
have. Yeah.
Contests, distributing rewards for
Oh yeah,
contests.
That, yes. Oh, that's new. That's good. Okay. Um, so submit this.
So um, Mr. Swiss was asking if the token allocator depends on time nodes, and that would only be if they're scheduled through the Ethereum alarm
Yes.
clock or potentially in the future through the Chronos protocol. Then the time nodes would be used to execute these transactions.
Yep. So we are still making further changes to the smart contract, and once we're through, it would be very seamless with the alarm clock. It would all be automated, and that way, almost all you would have to manually say you don't want it to be sent to the alarm clock. In that case, we'll have more of the transactions coming through the alarm clock, which would be directly connected to the time node, basically.
Great, yeah, just adding more and more demand for the Ethereum alarm clock. And I think there's a huge potential with the conditional scheduling with Chronos in the future.
Yes, actually. Um, the conditional scheduling is very big. It's we've had so many people indicate interest, uh, which is why we are really hard at work to try to get it working. Our own uh, Logan and Peter have been attacking it constantly. Peter has the first POC ready, so all we're just doing is trying to fine tune it and make it the best it can be, basically.
Yeah, and when you combine it with this token allocation distributor, you can
Yeah,
do. It's like you just get all these new possibilities.
yes, it's very exciting, basically. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. That's all I can say. So I don't bust up with excitement. So in case, yeah, in case you guys are wondering, this is just a little tool for transferring tokens, uh, specifically tokens, which is why I picked it. And I'll be able to make the transfer immediately to the address without needing any additional. Once I put in the contract address, it fetches my balance, and I then put the destination address and the amount to send. So I've sent in 3,000 tokens to the address, and all I need to do is to refresh, and you can see token transfers already. So that's 3,000 day tokens. So all I just need to do to complete this process is to send a transaction to this address. So I don't need to send it from MetaMask. I don't need to send it um, from my crypto. I just need to send from any one of the options available. It doesn't need to be a specific address. It's just a direct transaction. It can be from JavaScript, anywhere. So once I just send that particular call, which as you will see shortly is relatively cheap.
So how would an average end user do this with MetaMask?
So you can either make use of MetaMask or you can make use of my crypto, or you
Hmm.
could, well, for an average user, yes, either MetaMask or my crypto. Uh,
Okay,
there, there are gonna be more updates which will make it far more friendlier, actually. So I'm sending the transaction to, excuse me, to to the distribution. This is the link. Let's copy that. Let's go to Coven, paste it, and it's been mined. Let's refresh that again. It's been included. Let's refresh that again, and voila!
great.
Congrats, guys.
So
You'll
this
see
stuff
you
actually
have
works.
1,000 day token. Yes, actually. So let me just share
Great.
this real quick in the chat as well. Uh, So yes, as you can see, the 1,000 day tokens have been sent to the addresses in question. Those are the three addresses, the two from the community and the last one from the team. So
Very
that's
cool.
that's it in a nutshell.
And we
Pretty
could
pretty
use
direct.
Daniel Kamak's new feature of that extension where you could label all of these addresses in a
Yes,
certain color, or you could do it like by a person's name. And then when you want to
yes,
allocate these distributions to like the same 5 people, then you can have those colors and those labels.
correct. And that just simplifies the whole thing altogether and makes it just makes it so it brings things closer to the everyday user. It brings it closer to the average user basically.
Great, good job, Anthony. Now's the time where we are taking community questions. So if there's anything that you've been thinking about, this is the last opportunity to get your question answered. The EAC.js client has no updates. Is the development of that dropped?
No, 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 no. It's actually so right now we're trying to fine tune the library and the client, and before we can make any updates to the CLI or to the Dapp, we need to have those two fine tuned and ready to go. So once we have those two ready, you would see the corresponding updates in both the CLI and the Dapp.
Great, that's great news. Okay, well, thank you so much, Anthony, for doing those 2 demos. And I would really encourage all of the people who are attending and watching on YouTube later on to get your hands dirty and get in there and test this stuff on Kovan. You know, try out the Dapp, try out the Electron Dapp, try out running a time node. You know, and then when we go to mainnet, you'll be completely prepared to start earning those bounties.
Yeah, just to chip in something, this is fun. It's fun to be on the front line of something new, and there's no much fun. There's no more fun than actually creating something new. So, and I really have to appreciate you guys for being there with us and working with us through the development and all.
Yeah, only the people who have the knowledge to do this will do it, and all the people who want to do mining, you know, it's hard to get into that with the obstacles for that. But there's really no obstacle to get involved with running a time node.
Yeah. Um, so I think next level asks the question which I would love to attend to. Um, so we noticed the bug that it seems like some of the CLI nodes are not communicating with each other as well as the Dapp. This is question next level asked. I'm running 2 time nodes, one with ESC, the GSCLI, and one with the Dapp, but they don't know each other. If I schedule a transaction, only the one I have used for it is seeing it. Do they work with different contracts? So we noticed the bug, which is why we had to work hard on, which is why we're focusing on the client and the library, the EAC.js lib, to basically find out and fix whatever caused this issue. And once that is all resolved, everybody or all the nodes will get back in sync with each other. We also noticed the bug. We noticed it last week, and we've been working on fixing that. Sean, you might
Great.
want to take this last one from Tiago before we go.
Okay. Where could I go to learn the basics of what all this stuff means? So that would be our blog.chronologic.network. We have 2 tutorials that are going to have videos embedded as well, but they have all the screenshots, how to get test day and test ETH, and then how to actually run a time node and prove your day token ownership. So if you're confused about anything else, I would say go through all the different blog articles to learn what is a time node, what is a time mint, all of these terms that we use. And join our Telegram and just to ask people because people are really helpful in that channel. We have a really positive community.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. So I think that should round it for the day, right?
Yes, thank you, Anthony. Have a great week, and we'll see you at the next live stream.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.